Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a great week so far. And for once, I'm not going to have to back that up by saying, hopefully, you're not letting the fact that you're a Braves fan get in the way of you having a good week. Because, hey, the Braves are having a second straight good week in a row. As always, my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert, is with me. Stephen, I feel I don't want to take it for granted, but we're doing podcasts now where we're talking about wins, consecutive wins. 4 straight wins for this Braves team. It was great to see a 7-1 victory on Thursday night. Spencer Strider was absolutely excellent. The offense is starting to show a bit of consistency, and we needed to do exactly what we said we needed to do, a sweep of arguably the best team in the NL, the Mets. This Braves team still has a long ways to go, but they're putting together the steps that they need to start that journey we all want them to start.
Yeah, what's up, buddy? It's been great. It's been what we expected most of the year. I mean, this is what we thought we were going to get in April and May, and the pitching has been unbelievably good. And we're going to talk about Spencer first. Spencer's going to be the first segment tonight, and just having him not only perform and produce the way he has, but also look the way he has in terms of velocity, in terms of swing and miss. Like, it's just super encouraging how he looks. Even if the results weren't there, how he looks is fantastic. And then add in the fact that he's also getting results and the team is getting results. You know, this is probably as good as they've looked all year. If you combine offense, pitching, bullpen, like, this is the first time we've seen them even kind of put it all together at one time for any sort of, multiple game stretch. So yeah, this is what we thought we were signing up for. They've won 7 out of 9. Obviously just swept the Mets, the division leader, going to Miami, got a chance to continue it. Yeah, big stretch. And it's finally nice to see the Atlanta Braves look like the Atlanta Braves.
Absolutely. And this is the stretch, that we had all been waiting for. We got a similar stretch up in April, but then we fell right back into it. And especially, losing 14 out of 17, going in from the end of May into early June. But this is exactly what we needed to see. But do want to give credit to your point to Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider, who came back from the internal brace surgery, the version of the Tommy John surgery, his first 5 or 6 starts, it looked like that he was just trying to find his way. And there was speculation out there. There were think pieces out there. Are we going to have to see a Spencer Strider that's different from what we saw pre-surgery? But then the start against the Rockies came, and you saw the velocity get back to the normal Spencer Strider's level. Now you think to yourself, oh, it's just one game. Oh, it's against the Rockies. How much can you put on this being something that shows he's turned the corner? And then he comes out tonight and looks the exact same against the Mets. Not completely dominant. There were struggles, but I actually think that's encouraging. He looked like Spencer Strider despite the fact he had to work through a bit of trouble. That to me is encouraging, along with the velocity and the strikeout rates starting to normalize where we usually expect to see them from Spencer Strider.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the moment that I started feeling better was when I heard Spencer say after, I think it was the last time he struggled in a game, afterwards he said that the velocity in his arm was actually more about his lower half than his upper half. It's not necessarily just how his arm feels, but he gets so much velocity from his lower half. And, when you're rehabbing, you can't throw full effort, max effort pitches like that. And so you really have a hard time syncing up your lower half until you get into live game action. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is Spencer is starting to get his lower half into his full motion the way we saw back when he first came up. And listen, everybody knows about his calves. Everybody knows about his thigh. The dude is built like a truck from the waist down. So he's got so much power in those legs, and it's really good to see the velocity start to come. Listen, Spencer Strider at 93, 94 is different than Spencer Strider at 96, 97, 98. We just watched this with Craig Kimbrell. We've watched this with guys in the past. I remember Mike Foltynewicz came to camp one day throwing 94, and he was out of baseball a very short time later. Like, it's a big deal when you lose velocity. And so to see Spencer back 96, 97, 98, the last pitch he threw tonight, the 97th pitch of the game, was 96 miles an hour. So he's getting his velocity. He's holding it better. It's just all good signs. And then on top of that, he's getting results, right? I mean, the Mets scored 1 run tonight, and I think he's given up 1 earned run in his last 2 starts. Bunch of strikeouts. He's striking out guys at the rate we expected to see Spencer Strider strike guys out. So it's just all good signs. And even if the Braves had lost tonight, honestly, as good as Spencer looked at, there would have been some positive vibes because him looking this good is a good indicator for the rest of the season. And on top of the fact that the offense showed up, yeah, really, really good stuff from Spencer tonight.
And the other thing that stands out about this, just overall, we'll get into the offense a bit later on in the show. But, Steven, this is a reminder of the fact that you can make the case they haven't looked the part over the past year plus. And I know that the Braves have also had their struggles over the past 3 years in playoff series. But you just threw Spencer Swellenbach, Chris Sale, and Spencer Strider against arguably the best team in the National League. I still think many will say the Dodgers are, but one of the best 2 teams in the National League. And I know that the Mets did not counter with their best arms because they're dealing with injuries right now to a few of their best arms. But my point is, we looked head and shoulders as better than the Mets, at least in terms of pitching. The Mets struggled overall. They uncharacteristically were bad in this series, but we looked like the superior team in this series, and it shows what we're fully capable of. We've got a long way to go. You can make the case that there's still just as much a chance we don't make the playoffs as if we do, and I still think that we've got to put together another few weeks of this level of baseball playing, but this is just a reminder of what we're capable of. If we can at least get to the dance, we can lead the show in terms of the playoffs. And a big part of that is because of that 3-headed monster when it comes to our starting pitching. It was great to see, especially when it's backed by a little bit of consistency from our offense.
Yeah, and listen, the Braves are catching the Mets at a good time. They just got swept by Tampa Bay. They placed multiple pitchers on the IL. Like sometimes it's about when you play teams and you get a nice break that we probably caught the Mets in their worst stretch of the season. And that helps. And then the Mets caught the Braves at probably their best stretch of the season, like we just talked about. So, and the Mets did not play well. They made multiple outs on the bases. They forgot how to catch at a big league level for an entire series, which was weird. But the Braves also made them pay. Listen, all those walks tonight, eventually Matt Olson cleared the bases with a double. Like they made them pay. And my favorite thing about this stretch is the Braves are winning games. Obviously, they're winning games consecutively, but they're also winning games decisively. Like they're scoring, they're winning by 4 runs, 5 runs. It's not a 1 run, hold on to your butt the whole night and just pray to God that Raisel Iglesias can protect this 1 run lead. Even if he does it, you still don't feel great about that. It's when you actually beat a team 7-1, where it's just easy. And like last night, it was 5-0. The Mets never had a chance in the game last night. They barely had a chance in the game tonight. Like that's how I want to beat teams. And that's how I expect a team of the Braves talent level to beat teams, even as good as the Mets, because the Braves are as talented as anybody. So yes, they caught the Mets at a good time, but they also made the Mets pay for multiple mistakes in this series, multiple walks. Acuna and Olsen, we've talked about their 2 best hitters that look fantastic right now. There's other stuff in the lineup that's not going great, but we're not going to focus on that stuff right now when they've got a 4-game winning streak and have won, 3 straight series, and the vibes are too good to concentrate on anything negative right now. This is what I expect the Braves to look like. And we're going to talk about the Marlins here at the end of the show, but you got to keep it going. You can't give it back in Miami. You got to keep it going.
Well, and of course, the Braves' performance on the field is certainly what's going to make the headlines, but there also was some fun news today, probably the breakthrough prospect of the year. If you go back to spring training, a pitcher by the name of Didier Fuentes turned a lot of heads when it came to one of the showcase games for minor leaguers in spring training. A 19-year-old at the time, now just turned 20. He has been on an absolute roll. I think is elevated through 3 different levels of the Braves farm system so far this year. And lo and behold, he is going to be called up to start Friday night's opener against the Miami Marlins. And we are lucky enough to have one of the best in Braves country, Gaurav Vedak. He is going to be joining me here in just a moment after a word from our partners to discuss a bit more about what has led Fuentes up to this point to get this opportunity and what success for him could look like. But before I get, we turn, over to turn the analysis over to Gaurav to give us a bit more on Fuentes. Steven, what are your thoughts? I know neither one of us are really prospect guys, but it's really been amazing to see how much he's, gone through the minor leagues. Just seems to be very mature for his age, seems to have great stuff. This could be the real deal, the next Braves arm that could really make a difference for this squad, even at as young an age as he is.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a prospect guy. I'm going to let the experts handle the prospect stuff. I will say this. I was talking about this a couple of days ago on Twitter. I did think it was possible the Braves were going to have somebody else pitch in this Miami series along with Elder and Holmes, because by doing that, they lined up Schwellenbach, Strider, and Sale again to pitch against the Mets next week. And it just made too much sense not to do that. Now, if the Braves lose a couple of these games in Miami, people are going to get mad about that. But like just by process, just like when they moved Grant Holmes to start that game against Colorado, by process, I was fine with that. And Grant Holmes pitched fantastic in that game. The offense and the bullpen just both blew up. So I'm not surprised they're doing this. It's really cool to see a kid this young. He literally just turned 20. He was 19 like 2 days ago. One of the youngest pitchers you'll ever see reach the majors, quite honestly. This is very rare. And it's probably just going to be a spot start. I don't think he's up for any kind of significant time. But the fact that he's already garnishing a start in the middle of the hottest stretch of the Braves season where every game is vital tells you what they think about this kid and what his potential is. And you look at some of the more advanced metrics that sites use to grade prospects, and this dude grades off the charts. He's got a really interesting mix of pitches. Again, I'm going to let smarter people than I talk about that stuff in detail, but this is exciting. This is pretty cool. And I was not expecting this. I thought they might do a bullpen game or something. I was not expecting them to call up a 19/20-year-old to make this start, but that's what they did. And it's going to be exciting to watch.
Absolutely. And it was exciting to talk about Fuentes in detail. Again, with one of the best in Braves country and in general when it comes to breaking down prospects. Gaurav Vedak, he was on the show with Brad Rowland just a few weeks ago talking about the Braves minor league system. He was kind enough to join us once again. You'll hear the conversation between me and him on Didier Fuentes right after this word from our partners.
Kratz, real question for you. So I'm in Arena Club and I opened up a slab pack. I pulled a Wyatt Langford auto rookie card. I got an immediate offer from Arena Club. I turned it down. It was in the mid 300s range. I've gotten a few offers since. Thoughts on Wyatt? Should I hold on?
I saw it. I didn't see it when you ripped the pack, but it looks so sick with everything around it and how it's spinning in your showroom. That John looked nice. But no, you shouldn't sell it. Maybe wait till he makes an all-star or two, and all of a sudden that 300 goes up, and you're going to get another instant offer right away on Arena Club.
That's right. Buy, sell, trade. Slab packs are there for you too to rip a pack. And for me, I'm just leaving it in the showroom for now. I'm deciding what I'm going to do with it. But if I did want to sell it, then I can get myself another slab pack or buy a card that I want to buy. Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/Val. Use code FOUL.
Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast, and we are thrilled to have one of the best minds when it comes to Braves prospects. Gaurav Vedak is back with us once again, just with us a few weeks ago, breaking down Braves prospects with Brad Rowland, but he's back with us because it's a really exciting weekend. Gaurav, you broke the news yourself. First off, good talking with you again. Thank you for being on the show. I know Braves Country is always excited to see your face because you do incredible work when it comes to not only breaking down prospects, but bringing Braves Country knowledge of said prospects. And we're about to see one of the most hyped prospects we've seen in quite a while, Didier Fuentes. He is getting the call to the major leagues to potentially start Friday night for the Braves. I'll let you kind of break down just how historical that is and also how we got here with this young man, the man who many started to know from his breakout performance in spring training. Are you surprised by this at all, Gorv? Is it the right move? Just an awesome, awesome development for the breakthrough Braves prospect so far this year.
Yeah, I appreciate that, by the way, Shawn. But when given the full context, it kind of makes sense. The overall bringing him up allows better pitching matchups for the Braves against the Mets in their next series, and with that kind of gap, you have to go for it. But on top of that, the Braves are doing something different. We've seen those fifth starter, sixth starter retreads. It's been Bryce Elder. We've talked about that back and forth between Gwinnett. What the Braves are doing differently now is they're promoting their best arm. And when I say their best arm, I seriously mean it. Now they have pitching depth from 1 to 15. I got like, of those, my top 15 prospects, like three-fourths of them are pitchers. So they got plenty of pitching depth. But what Fuentes does, especially where what we've seen this year, the velocity's up, the command is way up. And when you factor in his really, really tiny vertical approach angle, that 95, 97 looks even faster. And on top of that, it's generating a ton of whiffs. He's been able to really attack people high in the zone. And that's something you just don't see a lot of minor league pitchers do. Now they can throw high, but can they command that pitch high in the zone, inside the zone, most importantly? And that's something you don't see too often. And it's something the Braves in the minor league systems are really trying to push right now. You're seeing a lot of high fastballs. Can minor league pitchers, can all of them be able to locate it high, be able to generate those whiffs? And Fuentes has done a tremendous part of it. Now he's got a ton of other pitches, which we'll go into pretty quickly. But it's that fastball that's been his calling card this entire season. And it's honestly, in my little group chat with Braves MILB, or Garrett from Battery Powered, we talked about Fuentes looking so good that we can find him in the majors this season. Now, when I say June, that was a bit of a surprise. But again, when it allows the matchups that it does for the Braves, it makes a lot of sense. And he's someone that I truly believe would be in Atlanta this year. I figured it'd be later in the year, and it still might shift towards more of that bullpen role as he continues to develop his arm and build up that strength. But yeah, it's very, very exciting. It's going to be, really a can't miss event tomorrow. I honestly am waiting to dig in, really waiting to dig into that even more data that he's able to get out there, because we haven't been able to see him too much this season and get that advanced data. So being able to see that more consistently is only going to help all of our evaluations of Didier. And again, could not be more excited. Very, very good kid. Very good kid.
Yeah, I want to hit on that first, and then we'll get into that data that you mentioned. The one thing that I want to hit on is, for a pitcher, he's going to be the youngest Braves pitcher in 55 years making his debut for the team. And so that speaks to me. You talk about a fastball that doesn't move that much. So that speaks to me about someone who's got good control, advanced control at his age. And it would also seem to speak to a very mature approach, a very, an approach that doesn't get rattled, stays in the moment, goes to the next pitch, even if, the previous pitch is a mistake or doesn't work out as it needs to. But I imagine, just from reading some of the scouting reports on him, you've got a kid who's composed, stays consistent, and is able to figure out how to outthink hitters a lot of the time. A lot of things that you don't see at his young an age of 20 years old, just turned 20 years old, that Fuentes is. Speak to mindset and why it just seems like he's mature beyond his years on the mound.
Every single coach, every single scout I have talked to about Fuentes has said the exact same thing. He is cool and collected. It doesn't matter the situation that he's in. If he's starting a game, if he's coming in the eighth or the ninth inning in a rehab assignment, nothing gets to him. That's like what you said is 100% true. He just does not get rattled. And on top of that, he listens to his coaches so well. I have not heard a single bad thing. I've never heard about him showing up late, showing up out of shape, anything like that, which is something extremely common, especially with younger kids coming into the minor leagues. For Fuentes, he's been in the organization for quite some time. He came in, I think, as a 17-year-old back in 2023. I saw him put in the work and effort then. He's continued to do so, continued to put in. He is one of the hardest working people in the offseason. You can see the major adjustments he has coming into each and every season. I called him a kid. He's now 20. This is a man that puts in the time, that puts in the effort, and he wants to, despite being blessed with an outstanding arm, he wants to learn the art of pitching. He wants to look into the data. He wants to understand how he can get better day in and day out. And having that kind of mindset, while it's at his age, like 20 years old, I was an idiot in college. But he's putting in that time. He's working out. He's showing up early. Everything I've heard about him from, again, coaches, from scouts, and from his teammates, nothing but good stuff about him.
Of course, obviously, the mental makeup is, that's the intangibles. That's the qualitative part of things that you can't necessarily measure. But you mentioned the data. And of course, I'm right there with you. I won't say I'm as talented as you are when it comes to the minor league side of things, because you really are good when it comes to breaking down that data. But you speak to that data. And of course, that spotlights the actual stuff of Fuentes. And it starts with that fastball. Again, not necessarily a lot of movement, but some really good control, some pinpoint accuracy with that fastball to get the high whiff rate. Off of that, you've got the slider, which seems to be pretty advanced for his age as well. But you talked about on social media today, the split finger for Didier Fuentes may be an area of opportunity that we could see featured a bit more. And we've just seen AJ Smith-Shawver. Unfortunately, we won't see it for a little while. Best wishes to AJ Smith-Shawver. That really kind of broke out Smith-Shawver's game, took his game to the next level this year. His usage of that split finger. Speak to what makes Fuentes' overall repertoire so advanced for his age, and how that split finger could potentially take him to the next level, even at the major league level.
Yeah, totally. So we just talked about how he came into the organization in 2023. We've already seen a complete shift in how he pitches. 2023, he was fastball, curveball, changeup. We fast forward to today, the changeup doesn't really exist. Instead, he's added not even added, he added a splitter a couple of seasons back, but he has not used it a ton. That splitter is so good that the Braves have, again, this is unofficially, but by looking at his starts, by charting his pitches, you can tell that the Braves are completely sold on it. They're not worried about it. What they wanted to see was increased command of his other secondaries. He had an amazing curveball to start off. He got rid of that almost completely end of last year, beginning of this year, and he was primarily fastball slider. Now that slider has shown great improvement since the very beginning. His first start in Gwinnett is when he brought back the curveball. So you're seeing, again, 19 at the time, now 20. You're seeing a really young man alter and listen to, again, I just said it, listen to his coaches, alter his approach entirely, be willing to work on things day in and day out. And what makes I want to specifically talk about that fastball, because his fastball sits around 95 to 97. If he wants, he can get it up to 98, 99. But why it generates so many whiffs is because his vertical approach angle is less than 4 degrees. We've seen the data has shown, and if there's a great article on Pitcher List, if anyone is interested, I will definitely go tweet it out after this. If you're on Twitter, you can find me and look it up. But there is a great article talking about the dynamics of a vertical approach angle. And what we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years is, with being able to especially stay within 3 to 5 degrees, that is elite territory. And we're seeing a huge amount of whiffs from that exact approach angle. So he's able to not only be on the upper end of a specific pitch, but he's in the elite category already as a 20-year-old. You factor that with then a slider that darts away, a curveball that it sometimes gets a little bit vertical for me. I wish to see a little more horizontal movement. Just you see, so there's a little more separation between his pitches, and then that splitter that just dies down. It's incredible, and he's only going to continue to work on it. The Braves, again, like, I don't think they expected this kind of ascension, because they have been throttling his pitch usage in between each start. And just this last one, we saw fastball curveball as opposed to fastball slider that we've seen for most of the season. So it's going to be interesting, that first start against the Marlins. Luckily, it is against the Marlins, to see what kind of pitch mix they go with. I'm expecting a heavy dosage of fastball slider with some curveballs sprinkled in, just because he hasn't thrown that splitter too much. But again, I mean, he's got such a talented arm. You might be able to see that splitter that he hasn't thrown barely at all this year come back and become, one of those top tier pitches potentially in Major League Baseball. I don't think it's quite there yet, but I would probably put his splitter grade right around a 55 to potentially a 60.
So obviously he has elite stuff, but that doesn't seem to be the driving force as to why he has ascended so well in the Braves system. Yeah. Not necessarily seen it so far in MLB rankings, but in the Braves system, you've seen it. A lot of times you just see pure, I guess you could call it filth or stuff, be the driving force for ascending young pitchers. But to your point with him, the fact that he put such an emphasis on knowing the, science or metrics or whatever part of it, and making sure that he's consistent with a productive setup. That's really what kind of sets him apart from other pitching prospects his age to go along with the natural elite stuff that he has. And that also could be why you may see him set himself apart at such a young age to take on the moment and be a bit more consistent than some may expect pitchers his age to be.
No, totally. And again, what he does so great, especially, is the command of all the pitches. Now, you don't see that. You typically will see a premier starting pitcher at that age be able to locate his fastball and be able to locate his fastball lower in the zone. But what Fuentes can do is he can locate all four pitches. Now, I will say the fastball, the slider, and the splitter are the best, and the curveball is lagging a little bit behind, but he's still able to throw that curveball when he needs to. But the fastball itself, again, it is such a ridiculous pitch, and he's able to lean on it consistently, throwing it 65 to 70% of the time, which then allows that element of surprise. And on top of that, it's his ability to command those pitches. He can live in the upper thirds of the zone with his fastball, which is extremely hard to do. Just think about the science behind throwing a pitch, right? You're going to throw it down, but he's able to keep that ball elevated and higher in the zone. And it makes it so difficult for hitters to perceive and to be able to keep that swing up high and make contact with it. So it is truly, one of the fastest ascensions I can remember. Well, Schwellenbach last year. we can't even talk about that with Schwellenbach and AJ Smith-Shawver, but we have seen so much development each year from him. And coming into this year, at the very beginning, I think it took maybe 2 starts. Braves MILB or Garrett and I were talking, and we said, you know what? We think he's got it with Drake Baldwin in Atlanta and not coming back. We think Fuentes has a legitimate shot of being our number 1 prospect. And as each start happened, of course, there was some time with blisters that he missed, but as each start happened, there was no reason for us not to think that way because of the ability to command all of his pitches at this age.
So going into kind of what the setup will be, we've talked about the reasons why he's here, why the Braves are trusting him with this opportunity. I want to get your perspective because I think it's a very valuable perspective on what success looks like in this opportunity. And then we'll build off that as we wrap up this segment of the show with Gaurav Vedak talking about the incoming debut of Didier Fuentes. The thing that I'll ask you is this, just straightforward. What does success look like to you for Fuentes in the start against the Marlins? Is it a certain amount of innings? It's the amount of, first pitch strikes he get, working through trouble, the overall pitch approach. What to you would stand out as being a clear sign of success? And this guy with more seasoning is going to get the job done at the major league level.
That's honestly a fantastic question. And it's really difficult to answer. I think everyone has their own barriers of success. For me, I would love to see his ability to spot the fastball and generate whiffs. If he's able to do that at the major league level, everything else will come into place. But if he's generating whiffs already against the elite of the elite talent, now it is the Miami Marlins, and you could, people have said, you can call them a quad A or a triple A team, but like they are still high, they're still some of the best athletes in the world. And if he's able to generate whiffs from that fastball, that only means every other pitch he has is going to play. Now, will he command them all? Like who knows? There's going to be so much adrenaline pumping through his veins. He just turned 22 days ago. Like, how can you not be absolutely amped up to show? And I know that the scout that found him is going to be at the game as well. So he's going to want to try and prove everyone right. But for me, I don't really care. I don't think he's going to go more than maybe 4 innings. He's been capped about 3.5 to 4.1 innings is right around his average on the year. And it's because he struggled with some blisters. They're just slowly working him up. And they've slowly been working him up, from double A to triple A and now major league and now the major leagues. Right. So I don't expect him to pitch too much, probably hover around 75 to 80 pitches, get through 4. 5 innings would be outstanding. 5 innings probably means he only gives up 2 or 3 runs, which would be, an absolute dream for me. But the main thing I'm focusing on, I don't really care about the results because I think he's going to be a really good pitcher in the show. I want to see if he can locate that fastball and if he can still generate those whiffs, because if so, then the sky's the limit for him.
Well, then let's talk about how quickly that sky could be reached, or the opportunity to reach that, as we wrap up this segment with Gaurav Vedak on the debut of Didier Fuentes. The big question then that I want to end with is what happens after this start? Say we see Fuentes throw 5 innings, 1 run ball, 6 strikeouts of the Marlins. Now, my assumption is that, as you mentioned, and you're absolutely correct, he's being brought up so the Braves can position their pitching staff to go against the Mets again early next week. Is there any chance that we see Fuentes get a second start out of this? Or is there the potential to where we see what he does at the major league level now? He goes and gets more seasoning at Triple A, sorry, the wrestling reference there, at Triple A. The thing that I'm getting at is that we also clearly have seen bullpen struggles so far this year. Is he a potential option later on this year to be someone for the home stretch, hopefully for a playoff push, that could work into that bullpen? I don't know if it makes sense with how the Braves will continue to handle him so far, but does he have the potential to stick in the majors depending on how he does with this start? And if not, could we potentially see him later on in the season, maybe in a bullpen role?
So like in a starter role, I don't necessarily see it because the Braves still have 5 quality starters, right? There's no reason to not let Grant Holmes pitch every 5th day. I'm going to go ahead and say that, but I think the arm talent is there. There's no way around it. I think the best route for him would be to go back to AAA, continue to develop his arm, get those innings, because he can't be relied on to at least go 5. If you can't go 5, I don't think you can turn to him on a every 5th game basis or 5th day basis. But I love the idea of his arm coming out of the bullpen, in September, getting to sit and talk with Chris Sale, with Spencer Strider, pick their brains after the season's over, be able to understand what it takes to get through a full 162 game season from the pros that have done it before, and just have him unleashed in the bullpen. He's right now, even with this tiny sample size, he'd be one of the most talented arms back there. And I love the idea of bringing him in, potentially in a much lower leverage situation. If a starter goes out early, have him come in the 6th, work his way up to maybe the 6th or 7th inning, and then have him just, again, sit in that dugout and learn from those guys after the season ends. I think it'd be rushed a little bit if they try and force him into the rotation and he's going, 4 innings each time, and you got fans oh, this guy can only last 4 and giving up 3, which would already be fantastic. That's already a great result from a 20-year-old making their debut. But I think in the best interest right now, it makes the most sense for him to make the spot start, go back to AAA, finish the season out there, and then come back to Atlanta and be completely unleashed in that bullpen, because he has not pitched too much to start the season. His arm should still perfectly be fine towards the end of it to be able to come up later in the season for the Braves.
And we also know that Atlanta has had previous success. They've had no qualms about bringing some of those young arms. Spencer Strider, 21-22. AJ Smith-Shawver has appeared in both of the last postseasons. So them bringing up a young arm, not necessarily they brought him up in a bullpen role, but they have no qualms about putting that young arm into the fire. And it certainly seems like Fuentes could be the next one to find success with that call. Cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join us. Where can everybody find your great work? I know that you have many hats, when it comes to covering baseball for the Braves and just baseball in general. Where can folks find your excellent work?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at GVDAC. I write for Battery Powered over at batterypowered.com, the minor league team. And then, of course, one of my many day jobs is also the director of marketing over at Baseball Prospectus. So, and if you love data behind baseball, check us out.
Gaurav Vedak is his name. He has been very kind enough to join us. Cannot wait to see his excellent breakdowns tomorrow. Make sure to follow him on X/Twitter when it comes to any and all performances from Braves minor leaguers for the latest context when it comes to the success, the struggles, and hey, you never know when they'll be making an impact at the major league level. We'll be right back with you after another word from our partners.
It might be that time. If you're looking for a new car, there's one place to go that is going to take care of you. And it's CarGurus.
Yeah. Looking for a car should be fun, not exhausting. Everywhere else, it's exhausting. You're dodging people. You're trying to just, can I look at this car? CarGurus, You type in your search, you find the color that you want, it narrows it down for you, and all of a sudden you're like, this has been an exciting experience, and you got a great deal.
With over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the US, so you can find the best deal. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com.
Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast, and cannot thank again Gaurav Vedak for taking the time to talk with us about Didier Fuentes, where we could see him going after this start. Hopefully it'll be a successful start, but it's going to be really exciting to see one of, if not the best arms in the Braves system, be in the spotlight on the mound in Miami for the big league squad to open up the series tomorrow night against the Marlins. But let's talk about one aspect of this team that we have been clamoring to get consistent for quite a while, and that is the offense. Because on Thursday night, I've talked about it a few times this year, Stephen, in which this offense is able to display that they are capable of winning games in a different way other than displaying power or having luck or what have you. They won on Wednesday night by a solid approach at the plate, putting balls in play like they should have, being patient and going with the pitches that were pitched to them, and more than anything, getting on base. 9 walks on Thursday night, the first time that they have had 9 walks in a game since July 14th of 2023. That's nearly 2 years since they've had this much production walking in a game, and that's awesome to see. They've not gone more than 2 years. They've not gone that long of a stretch between games where they had 9 walks since 2016 to 2019. So that is really an encouraging sign. But the big thing of all, and I know I've harped on this, but I think that it's worth harping on, for the first time this year, the Braves have scored 5 or more runs in 3 straight games, and they won all 3 games. They're 7-2 over their past 9 games, 5.4 runs per game. Remember, this is a team that wins 83% of its games when they score 5 or more runs. 24-4 this year when they score 5 or more runs. If they could just do that consistently, that's the aspect of this team. That's the turnaround we're talking about that they need to win at the rate that they need to.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about how the team actually looks good. It's not just winning games, but they look the part. They're scoring runs. They're winning decisively. The offense is putting up, I'm not going to say they're putting up great at-bats, but they're putting up much better at-bats throughout the lineup. Now, listen, it starts with Acuna and Olsen. Both of those guys have OPSs over 1,000 in June. Obviously, Acuna has a 1,200 OPS overall. He's been probably the best player in baseball since he came back up. But Olsen has kind of joined him. And now the Braves have 2 legitimate, star-level hitters in their lineup at the same time. We're still waiting on Austin Riley. We're still waiting on Marcel. If they could get all 4 of those guys going at one time, then I would feel even better than I do right now. But having 2, Ozzie Albies had a pretty solid series. I want to give a shout-out to Nick Allen, because Nick Allen just had a really good series against the Mets. He's up to a 309 on base percentage. CJ Nikowski tweeted out that he has 8 walks since Ronald came back or something like that, which helps a ton. We talked about before about I don't like the fact that Ronald so often is batting with no protection around him. And you and I talked about that on our last show. Well, when Nick Allen gets on base, it changes the equation. You can't pitch around Ronald as much when there's already a guy on base. It's when there's 2 out and nobody on and Ronald comes up and you got Verdugo batting behind him. Now you can definitely pitch around Acuna. And we saw multiple times in this series, Allen get on base, a double, a walk, whatever, and they had to pitch to Acuna. And that set up multiple rallies that the Braves had in this series. And so, listen, I know Michael Harris, we're not going to have a massive Michael Harris conversation. We can have a small one. We're not going to have a massive one just because, again, vibes are too good for that. But Nick Allen getting on base has helped a lot. Alex Verdugo has actually swung the bat better in the 2-hole than he did before. I still don't like him there, but to his credit, he has improved. It was good to see Drake Baldwin he got a hit and a couple of walks tonight. He'd been scuffling. Both catchers have actually been scuffling pretty good lately. So that was good to see. But yeah, offense looks better. And It starts with Acuna and Olsen. It always starts with Acuna and Olsen. Those are the two best hitters on the team. I've said that for multiple years now. But they need the other guys as well. They need Riley and Ozuna specifically to really kind of find it again. And then this offense could really be elite. I mean, not just good, not just above average, not just 5 runs a game, but one of the best lineups in baseball. And, that's kind of the step we're still waiting for.
So the reason that I wanted to lead this final segment of the show with the offense starting to get that consistency, starting to get that approach, that's what's going to have to maintain. That is going to have to continue to be the case going into this weekend, because we talk about the fact that our pitching staff, we positioned our pitching staff in this Mets series to have our 3 best going, and we were clearly head and shoulders the better pitching staff. That switches this weekend. You're looking at Didier Fuentes against Jason Junk, who's looked pretty good so far in his, outings that he's had for the Marlins. Yuri Perez, who was once arguably the best pitching prospect in baseball. He had Tommy John surgery. He's back. He's looking like he's putting it together in an elite fashion. And of course, you have Sandy Alcantara, who I know that he struggled for much of the start of the season. He's starting to look like his old self once again. You've got those 3 going again against Didier Fuentes, Grant Holmes, as well as Bryce Elder. The Marlins have the advantage in this series when it comes to starting pitching. So where the Braves are going to have success is flexing their offensive muscles against the Marlins offense. The problem, Stephen, and that you've hinted at multiple times, is that before 10 ago, this Marlins offense had actually scored more runs on the season than the Braves. So the point that I'm getting at is that for the Braves to continue this momentum, for them not to fall off like we've seen so many times this season, they have got to keep the offensive consistency going, not just power, but putting together good at-bats, because they're going to face some quality pitching in this Marlins series. A series you expect to win, but it's going to be tougher than I think many anticipate because of how good of the arms the Marlins are throwing over the weekend.
Yeah, and listen, I don't want the Bryce Elder people to get mad at me again. Bryce Elder has pitched better this year, so it's not just like Bryce Elder's pitching, so the offense needs to score 6 runs or they'll lose. It's very possible Bryce Elder could go out and throw a really good game against the Marlins. It's very possible Didier Fuentes could come out in his major league debut and throw really well. Grant Holmes has thrown extremely well this year. Just struck out 15 guys in his last start. So, it's not impossible the Braves could not do great on offense and still win 2 out of 3 or maybe even better. But it would make things a lot easier if they just score. If they just do their job and score runs. I really wish that Junk was a junk ball pitcher. I don't think he is. I think he throws like 95, 96. But if your last name is Junk, I really need you to be like a 83 mile an hour. I need you to be like a Jamie Moore type. The fact that he's not is disappointing. But like you said, he's had a good year. And then, they've got a couple other guys that are decent. They're not great, but they're decent. Sandy has had an up and down year, but obviously everybody knows his ceiling is incredible. So it wouldn't shock anybody to see him come out and dominate the Braves in a game. He's done it before. So the offense does need to show up. And what I don't want is to have all of this really great momentum and then just go give it all back in Miami, where you lose 2 out of 3, God forbid you get swept because you can't score. And then you're just kind of right back where you started before all this. And that's the thing about where the Braves are right now. Even as well as they played, they dug themselves such a hole that they can't afford to take their foot off the gas. Like if they go out and lose 3 or 4 in a row after this, they're just right back in the same hole. Because they played so poorly for so long, they need a prolonged stretch, month, 2 months of playing high level baseball. They cannot afford to go and lay an egg in Miami just because they had a good week against the Mets. So this was a great week. This was a great sweep. Their first sweep since middle of April. Awesome. It's always fun to beat the Mets. I don't care what time of year it is, what the standings are. It's always fun to beat the Mets. I love beating the Mets. But you can't rest on those laurels because you dug yourself too big a hole. You got to go out to Miami. You got to take care of business. And then you got to come back, go to New York, against the Mets again, and take care of business. They don't have the luxury of letting up. They've just dug themselves too big a hole. So keep it going. You should at least win 2 out of 3 against a bad Miami team. Braves are much better than Miami. Full stop. 2 out of 3 is the expectation. Sweep would be great, but anything less than 2 out of 3 is a disappointment.
It's the absolute truth. They've got to keep the momentum going. But again, I feel like that we're in a spot now more than we have been, in the past, several weeks, that this team can do it and the opportunity is right there. But they've got to make sure that they focus on the fact that even though on paper they're going to be facing a weaker opponent, that pitching quality is going to be there. So it's on the offense, especially early, to get the job done. Steven, do you have anything else for us as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast?
And I will say this, having Acuna and Olsen both red hot does give me more confidence that it's not going to be as fleeting as the offense has been in the past, where we've seen them have a good game and then the next night they score one run, or the next two nights they score one run. When your two best hitters are hitting like your two best hitters, I do have a higher level of confidence that this team is not just going to give it all back in Miami. Now, they've burned me plenty of times this year, so if it happens, we're of course going to talk about it. But with Acuna and Olsen going, that is at least a higher baseline level than they've had before this point. So, that's to be a little more positive and optimistic. I do think that those two guys hitting so well matters and should help them avoid this, this bottom falling out of the offense, which we've seen so many times this year. Hopefully that's the case.
Absolutely. Again, this past series shows when our best is at their best, we can play against the best and have success. So that's
they can beat anybody.
Absolutely. And they're going to have to do that frequently.
And listen, when Sale and Strider and Schwellenbach pitch like this,
oh yeah,
they could win a World Series with that rotation right now because of how good those three dudes are pitching. There's nobody in baseball who's got three dudes who can pitch like that at their top. They can play with anybody. So they just got to keep it going.
And hopefully they will. And that's where we'll end this edition. Can't thank Gaurav Vedak enough for being able to join us earlier in the show, talking about Didier Fuentes, who we all will get to enjoy in seeing, pitching for the Braves in his major league debut tomorrow against the Marlins. For Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at _outliers on Twitter/X, myself at StatsSAC on Twitter/X, Hammer Territory across all forms of social media, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Can't thank you enough for joining us and all the support. Also, don't forget now, one other really fun aspect of Hammer Territory, you can actually support Hammer Territory. You can actually promote some merchandise. We got the Hammer Territory store. More details on that as time goes along. Make sure you check it out when you get the opportunity to. Birthdays coming up, what have you. There's going to be some great merchandise coming down the pipe when it comes to Hammer Territory. Can't thank you enough for all the support. And hey, more than anything, and more importantly, in an enjoyable fashion as we possibly can, I can't say it enough, or a more exciting fashion than I have right now. I can't even put my words together right now. Go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.